America, two struggling banks who have already received a combined $50 billion in TARP funds. They're expected to get another piece of the TARP pie to help offset big fourth quarter losses. The former vice presidential candidate for the Libertarian Party says this potential move could bankrupt the country and that the Federal Reserve, it needs to go. He even has a stimulus plan of his own. Joining me now is Allyn Root, who tackles this all in Destroy the Fed Before the Fed Destroys Us on his blog. Wayne, as always, good to see you.
Hi, Alexis. How are you?
All right. So you want the Fed destroyed. Tell me why.
Well, listen, I'm a small businessman. I heard the last guest while I was sitting here talking about how Madoff was so terrible and there's no transparency in hedge funds. Where's the transparency at the Fed? Where's the transparency with this bailout? Where's the transparency with government? I don't think hedge funds are the problem in our country. That's called private enterprise. I think the problem is government and government employees and the Fed. The Fed didn't prevent the 1929 Great Depression. They were in effect, they were founded before 1929. They didn't prevent it and they didn't solve it. They didn't prevent or see it coming in 2008, and they're not solving this one either. It's getting worse every day, Alexis, and it's obvious the Fed is right in the middle of it. Perhaps they're not the solution, they're the problem.
Okay, so Wayne, look, there's a lot of people who would agree with you that the tools that have been put in place right now are not succeeding, that transparency is lacking. In fact, we've filed a motion to get some real disclosure on these TARP assets. But there are some who also suggest, though, that, wait a second, it's like national security. If the Federal Reserve Bank exposes too much information about their balance sheet, they run the risk that private investors or institutions out there will bet against them. We cannot afford to do that, to show some of that, because it is the central bank of the United States. What do you say to that?
I understand the argument, but I say if a bank wouldn't show me my bank account online, I wouldn't bank with them. And here, it's my money that's saving B of A and Citibank and Merrill Lynch and all these other deals that I think are taking the country down with them. The fact is, it's taxpayer money. Therefore, every single dollar of the bailout, and I mean every dollar, should be posted online, where it's going, what's happening with it, and how are we getting it back.
Okay,
and none of that's happening.
Okay, so I agree with you on that, but here's a question. If the Federal Reserve Bank does nothing, mortgage rates wouldn't be down to 5%. If the Federal Reserve Bank does nothing, one could argue some of the biggest banks in this country might have failed. If the Federal Reserve doesn't get involved with the FDIC, your deposit insurance on your deposits may not be up to $250,000. Don't they do some things right?
Well, first of all, they are fallible, not infallible, because they're human beings that run the Fed. Why not go back to the gold standard? That's infallible. The gold standard doesn't allow politicians to make promises with our money and therefore waste taxpayer money because it puts in a standard. The dollar is attached to gold, and you can't just print money at the Fed and give taxpayers money away. So I think you're better off with a infallible system called the gold standard than a fallible system. And number two, Alexis, I do want to state, some of the reasons for what's happening right now, if not most of them, is that government caused the problem in the first place. Whether it was the Fed instituting an easy money policy that caused all this, government backing up Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which caused all the big investment houses to back the mortgages and put our money in it because they thought government's going to back it so we can't lose. So they had the leverage of putting 30-to-1 of investors' money in it. How about the Community Reinvestment Act? All of that caused by government.
All right, so Wayne, look, there are plenty of people who agree with you. I mean, look, what we've seen over the past 6 months to a year has been nothing but disappointing.
Disaster.
But the jury is still out, and we need to give it time to see how some of these things will work their way through the system. One of the things that's working its way through Congress right now is President-elect Obama's stimulus package. I want to know, A, what you think about it, and B, you've got your own, so tell people what it is.
Well, first of all, Bush's stimulus package was a failure last year. At best, it was a mild hit on the economy, but it gives away taxpayer money. Here's the irony. Okay, the last guy that was on was writing for Time.com, I believe you said.
Yeah.
He was writing on behalf of all the people that lost money with Bernie Madoff. I should be writing for Time.com on behalf of taxpayers and small business people because it's bad out there. It's the worst you've ever seen for small business people. As a matter of fact, right now, I got driven to this studio in a limousine, and the limousine driver last year owned 2 restaurants. They're both out of business. Now he's a limo driver. You don't know how bad it is out there. Small businessmen like me are getting crushed. And the irony is, you won't even give the stimulus check to me.
Right.
See, Obama only worries about his voters, who are the poor and the guys who belong to unions and federal and state government employees. Who's worrying about small businessmen and women that hire 75% of employees?
Okay, but Wayne, let's also be fair. President-elect Obama is not the root cause of these issues. He is receiving legacy issues that have lasted for years and years, which both
Absolutely.
Republicans and Democrats are responsible
Agreed.
for. If you're in his
Agreed.
position, you need to do something. I'm assuming you don't like what he's doing, but he's got to do something.
Hey, listen, my new book comes out in May. It's called The Conscience of a Libertarian, and you'll love the subtitle. It's Empowering the Citizen Revolution with God, Guns, Gambling, and Tax Cuts. And if you ask if you ask my answer to how you stimulate the economy, you give everyone in America, everyone who pays taxes, a 1-year income tax vacation. Stop the income tax for 1 year, and you will see an economic explosion, because that's the way to put money in the hands of the people that know how to create jobs.
There is nobody like you. That is for sure. Wayne, as always, it's a pleasure seeing you. And, of
Thanks,
course,
Alexis.
come back on that. Let me see. Guns, gambling, and what?
It's God, Guns, Gambling, and Tax Cuts, Empowering the Citizen Revolution, The Conscience of a Libertarian. And the last thing I want to say is, if you gave every taxpayer an income tax vacation for 1 year, no taxes, it would add up to $1.3 trillion. That's about the same amount
that
as Obama's economic stimulus plan.
Right. All right. Wayne Allyn Root, you're too much.